Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the second live video chat for Collaborative Planet. The title of today's chat is How Important Is Mobile UCC? Our guest today is Mohammed Ali. Mohammed is the Chief Strategy Officer at Hewlett-Packard, and previously he was the President of Global Services for Avaya. Now, Mohammed, our relationship goes back to Avaya and even back to your IBM days, and that's mostly what I know about what you do. Let's catch up a little bit. Before we dive into the UCC discussions, tell me what HP's strategy is and your role in moving that forward as the CSO.
Great. Well, first of all, Rodney, thank you for having me on the program. It's been a while. It's great to catch up with you. Just so the audience knows, I've known Rodney for a long time. I think way back to our IBM days when we were actually building a large complex, a physical building complex out on 495, and that's when I first got introduced to Rodney, and I don't know, maybe that was 8-9 years ago. And since then, as you mentioned, I've been to Avaya, Aspect, and now HP. The opportunity and work at HP is just really exciting. As the Chief Strategy Officer, I get an opportunity to work across the entire business, and as you know, HP is a very large company with many different businesses. It's over $100 billion, and it probably has one of the largest technology portfolios from personal systems, enterprise hardware, enterprise software, enterprise services, etc. In terms of what our strategy is, we have been describing our strategy as solutions for the new style of IT. And I'll describe to you a little bit of what that means. It really pivots around 4 areas, and you'll see how those areas are actually relevant to this topic very shortly. And those areas are cloud, mobility, big data, and security. We actually see 5 megatrends, those 4, and social media. And we've chosen to heavily focus on those 4. From a strategy perspective, at least what I do on a day-to-day basis, I have a strategy team. So we work with all the coaches to establish strategies around these 4 areas I mentioned. We have an analytics team, a market intelligence team, an alliances team to build the alliances to enable strategies. But the other thing that we work on is the transformation of the company, and so I also have a restructuring team that focuses on that. And as you can imagine, the restructuring is a pretty important piece of our transformation, and effectively it's to free up capacity so we can invest in these new style of IT categories: cloud, mobility, big data, and security.
All right, excellent. Now, Mohammed, I did want to give the viewers one little note about me here. In case you see me blinking a lot, folks, it's not because I'm sending out Morse code. I have a little bit of an allergy thing going on. You might see one of my eyes looks a little funky. No problem, but I just wanted to let you know, this isn't some sort of conspiracy, and I'm not trying to send you a message. So, Mohammed, the rapid rise of the cloud has had a clear impact on mobile UCC. As you alluded to earlier, what is HP's larger view of the cloud?
So the cloud is absolutely essential to HP going forward, but in multiple scenarios. Today we have a cloud strategy that includes 3 core elements. Those 3 core elements are a public cloud, where anyone can go and consume resources. Private cloud, where our customers, especially our enterprise services customers, our EDS customers who have large outsourcing arrangement with us and so forth, can get a private cloud. And then the components, we also sell the components to, say, service providers who want to build their own cloud for consumption. We will sell them the hardware, the software, and the services to put it all together. It's based on OpenStack, and where we're heading with this is to ensure that all 3 instances of those types of cloud have the same technology components. And so if you happen to buy some private cloud services from us and you want some additional public cloud services, you can burst over and utilize one to the other seamlessly. With respect to mobile UCC, today we are actually one of the larger providers of UC as a service. And we are rapidly expanding that to include more and more mobile UC. And so, we partner with companies like Microsoft on Link, Avaya, et cetera, um, to essentially, provide you with UC as a service. And so, oftentimes you may go to a vendor and the vendor can sell you the product, but they can't really provide you with the service. We will take the product and create the service for you. And that, has an integral connection to the cloud.
Excellent. Mohammed, you actually answered my follow-up before I even asked it, so I appreciate that. So one more about what you're doing there at HP. HP is a substantial participant in unified communications and collaboration today. Tell us a little bit about what they're doing, or what you're doing there at HP.
Sure. So UCC is a very big business within HP. We have been, partners with Microsoft, Avaya, many other providers, but those two are high on the list. For years, we provide managed service as well as a whole variety of services, including implementation services around those technology and others. Customers include SAP, the Navy, et cetera. Recently, we've been expanding this whole UC as a service because that is just, as you know, Rodney, very well, you know, big growth area. Customers are looking more and more to do it, but they want to do it with kind of enterprise quality. And really, that's sort of the differentiator that at least we've been focusing on. And I know many customers have, during my days at Avaya, for example, that was really the key thing. There were other UC as a service solutions out there, but can you scale it to tens of thousands and do it in an enterprise grade? It's a little hard. And so we've been providing that. We've also been doing some pretty interesting things around integration. So, for example, we were, I believe, the first, or at least one of the first, to be able to integrate Link with Skype. As we start talking about mobile UCC and how mobile UCC, sort of connects in a mainstream way, this is actually a pretty interesting example of it, and one that we're pretty excited about.
Excellent. We'll get into that Skype link connection too later on. One more note for the viewers: at the end of this half hour, at the end of this live video segment, we'll be going on to our live text chat. At which point Mohammed will be able to answer any questions that you might have. Being the busy guy that he is, Mohammed is only available to us until 2:45. So please make sure you've got all of your questions ready to go. Feel free to preload any that you think are very interesting and get them up there right away. So Mohammed, there seems to be no end to the demand for more speed, more bandwidth, and putting unified communications onto mobile devices is just going to make that blow up. How can mobile UCC thrive in an era where even voice is about to move into becoming just another type of data traffic with things like voice over LTE?
Yeah, I mean, clearly there's a huge explosion in bandwidth, right, and a huge explosion in the demand that's driving it. And in some ways, this is driven by some of those megatrends that we talked about earlier that our strategy is based around. A lot of other people's strategies are based around these megatrends also: cloud, mobility, big data, security, etc., and social, as I mentioned previously. I actually don't see an inherent disconnect between the voice being just another data type and the ability to thrive economically. In some ways, the fact that voice has become another data type has actually created opportunities for companies to innovate and do really exciting things. And those companies are, in fact, thriving economically, right? I mean, we mentioned it before, but Link is a great example of that, um, of utilizing sort of new modern technology to create a growth segment for itself. And I think you'll see that in some of the coming technologies, right? So, for example, we'll be able to utilize 4G technology with QoS and then switch to high bandwidth 802.11n coverage when you're within that kind of environment, right? And the companies who use these changes in technology to develop innovative solutions are going to do quite well. Now, there are some companies that don't move with the technology, and they're going to suffer, as we've seen in every industry. So I actually think that that this massive pace of innovation is actually really exciting. It's going to create a bunch of winners.
Very poor experience with any kind of phone I've had, even transitioning from a 4G tower to a 3G tower. Going from cell to Wi-Fi, even if it's a fast Wi-Fi like N, is a real problem. Is that something that's just a matter of the phone manufacturers need to work that out? Is it something that the suppliers of the equipment, both the cell towers and the wireless routers need to work out? Or do they all have to get together and make that sort of happen more smoothly? Or am I just buying the wrong phones?
Yeah, I don't think you're buying the wrong phones, Rodney. I think what you're seeing here is that, um, and it's sort of the excitement of our time. There's like all this technology out there. Everybody's doing all this stuff. And yeah, not everything, some of these things don't work yet. I don't actually know and partially because, I don't study this stuff on a daily basis. I don't know what the exact problem is. But I actually am pretty confident that this is going to be resolved. I mean, I know people who are, who have, you know, exciting little startup companies that are trying to address this problem, and so I actually see this as a real viable option going forward. In some ways, this is a little bit like sort of the over-the-top communication guys and the other guys. Like, when is it going to come together? And there's there's probably a whole better understood, at least from from what I know, view of what the problem is there. I actually think the 4G wireless LAN, a big part of that is technology, and the technology will get better, and there will be these small companies that innovate.
All right, that makes sense. And as Chief Strategy Officer, when you find one of those startups and you decide to scarf it up, just let me know.
Okay.
Now let's move over into one of the areas that's a big concern for any kind of mobile, and particularly a concern when you're talking about mobile UCC for the enterprise, and that's security. Mobile security, it's still a big concern. What are some of the biggest issues that are involved once you start moving into the UCC field or in the mobile field in general?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the mobile field in general has a lot of the same issues as mobile UCC, especially now that, UCC is effectively a data type, right? So, there are probably, let's say, about maybe 3 or so key issues that I can talk to. The first is policy enforcement, right? You have these devices out there, and maybe you have a policy that says, no, you have to have a password that looks a certain way, that is high quality. You can't have our corporate data on a device out there that has no password. So simple policy things like that. That's one set of issues, and there are actually reasonable technologies out there today to address sort of policy enforcement. The second is separation of enterprise data and personal data, especially with the rise of bring your own device or your other device or whatever it is. People have multiple devices, and that separation is, there really isn't good solutions to this quite yet. I mean, there are companies that are working on it. We have services to help with this, but that's an area that needs a lot more development. And then, I would say probably the next sort of order of issues um, is IP protection and that content that's out there. Um, how do you? An example would be legal discovery, right? So you have a device that's owned by the employee. How do you do legal discovery on not only if you had a lawsuit or something, the data that's in your enterprise, that's on your exchange server, but also the data that may be local, that is effectively company owned, but it's locally on the device. So there's some real issues here, and this is actually why at HP we've actually uh, decided that security was one of the core things we're gonna anchor on. Even though if you look at security, you sort of say, well, it's not quite like cloud and mobility in terms of scale and size, but in fact. The proliferation of mobile devices, the proliferation of cloud, and UCC happen to be, one of those things that running on both mobile and cloud is actually creating a whole new category of security problems. And the companies that try to address the security problem are actually going to be the ones that I think can help advance mobile, cloud, and the applications that run on top of them, including mobile uses.
Let me do a follow-up on the middle part of that. We were talking about, it was my term, the sort of containerization of personal usage and data versus enterprise usage and data. And I have seen some companies that are handset manufacturers that are making phones that are that have this capability, but they're few and far between. You're talking about HP working on a sort of a software solution for that. Can you talk a little bit about how this containerization might work in what you have in mind?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's actually kind of a little bit bigger problem than just the device, right? So you've got the device, and then you've got sort of the infrastructure behind the device. And if you think about how, I'm going to step back a little bit and talk about security. So it used to be that as a company, you would secure your perimeter because you didn't want bad stuff coming in, right? You had firewalls and all these things. And and then all of a sudden, kind of mobile devices and cloud showed up, and effectively the boundaries of your enterprise are no longer defined by four walls. Like your enterprise has gone out just by the issuance of a mobile device, right? And so the nature of security has actually started to change, and the expectation is that bad guys are going to get in, or bad data is going to get in, or bad something's going to get in. And so the companies now focus on security. And as you may know, we actually have a very large security business. And today, it's mostly focused on the infrastructure. And just to give you a sense, and most people have no idea of this fact, but HP actually detects more vulnerabilities than the next four security companies combined. And that's because we actually have three large businesses that we acquired. We put them together. We built around that. The businesses are, they're Tipping Point, Fortify, and ArcSight, and they focus on the infrastructure. So the idea now is that a Tipping Point in particular is an appliance, and what it does is let's say you have a mobile device out there, and there's some bad traffic that comes into the enterprise through the mobile device. What products like Tipping Point do is they kind of observe the behavior of the traffic, and if it looks funny, they look at it even closer and closer, at times all the way down to the packet level. And so the assumption is the bad stuff's going to come in, and so our job now is to just keep a watch for the bad stuff coming in. And so that's one side of the security problem, and a pretty big side that sometimes people ignore. Then the other side is on the device itself. And there are multiple technologies there, right? some people are using virtualization. So there's basic MDM to do things like policy enforcement and so forth. And there's containerization. But containerization is probably that you've seen this, Rodney, where BlackBerry and so forth are trying to kind of create environments where they separate enterprise and personal stuff. But really, kind of the best solution is what people are starting to call application wrapping. And so within our software business, we're actually developing something called HP Anywhere that is an application wrapper. And so it's kind of under development. We'll talk about it. But if we can get that in a good spot on the device side and fairly good infrastructure security that we already have to work together and utilize our enterprise. So if a big customer comes to us like a bank, and we can add the security on the device side on their infrastructure and then manage it through our what's called managed mobility service in our enterprise services business, we can actually deliver a pretty good complete end-to-end secure solution. And so that's sort of where we're at.
Since you mentioned Anywhere, and you also mentioned startups a little bit earlier, I think that segues nicely into this next question. Who has the advantage with mobile UCC? Is it the enterprise-grade providers of services and the innovation that, things like Anywhere where you're creating, or is it the startup community where they're doing new things like WebRTC?
Yeah, I mean, I tell you, our whole country is built on startups, right? And when I left Stanford, I went to work for a small company called Adobe, and then I left there, and I went to a startup that did neural networks, and so startups always seem to have the edge in the end. Having said that, they're the startups oftentimes are an ingredient to a larger company strategy. And I clearly, HP and others are HP in particular, are very committed to open standards, whether it's OpenStack or Linux and x86, and I think WebRTC has the potential to be a great open solution, but it hasn't really been adopted widely yet, and that's an issue, right? I don't think Microsoft or Apple or some of the providers of mobile UCC has sort of bought into it, and so that's a concern. I would say though, in the near term, the large enterprise vendors are in a very, very strong position, right? And even though they're not delivering a completely ubiquitous, open, interoperable everywhere solution, it's a good enough interoperable solution. So you look at examples like Link and Skype. That covers actually a lot of territory. It covers a lot of people, and you can get a lot done. And the fact that a lot of this stuff is going to be reliant on some sort of a common directory, some sort of common presence. Some of the large incumbents, like Microsoft, for example, have I think a good, really good starting point. And there are other products out there from, as you know, Avaya, Siemens, and so forth. And at the end of the day, I think it'll sort of come down to what it's always come down to. The big companies have a strategy, and the small companies innovate with a bunch of stuff. Small companies acquire little companies, and they proliferate these sort of new technologies and standards that they've come up with. To be quite honest, I don't think any of us know how this is going to play out. I think WebRTC is exciting, but at the end of the day, if I may, especially if I'm a large enterprise and I have to go deploy something, I'd probably go with some of the established vendors who have the capability to acquire and to innovate organically as well as acquire.
It's funny. It's like you're reading my mind, Mohammed, because you mentioned the Link Skype connection, and I did say we were going to get back to that. Excuse me. Pardon me. So right now, it looks like something like Link and Skype could be a competitor to WebRTC. Do you think that those two are going to integrate at some point?
Um, Boy, that would be really great, wouldn't it? I actually I don't know. A lot of that depends on um, the WebRTC, I guess, consortium for lack of a better term, and Microsoft. But I would say that our industry has always been built on standards, right? Whether that's ITU or IEEE, and I think in times when the market competing approaches to a particular solution, companies really need to come together through some sort of a standards mechanism. And as of right now, it's not clear that there is a standards mechanism to get WebRTC and Link Skype together. But having said that, I would think that's something that the industry needs to work towards. I don't see it happening tomorrow, and clearly from where I sit, if I had to pick something and bet on it from an enterprise perspective, I probably you know I'd probably not be in a huge rush to move to WebRTC, but I would watch it carefully, see how it develops. While in the meantime, there's a pretty exciting development with the integration of Link and Skype.
Well, you mentioned standards, so again, that leads us very nicely into our next question, and it'll probably be the last one for the video portion of our segment today, since we are bumping right up against the 30-minute mark here. But who has the biggest role to play in establishing these standards that have to come about? Is it the vendors? Is it the end users? Is it some sort of regulatory body? Who's going to be the biggest determinant of what comes out for standards for mobile UCC?
Yeah, I mean, ideally, in our industry, you want the companies to come together, and you want the best and brightest engineers to come together and create a good solution. Having the regulatory bodies come in and enforce something doesn't necessarily always lead to the best solution. When I was at IBM, I managed a team of really smart engineers, and they were very active in the ITU, and over the years, the ITU was the body by which we drove modem standards and DSL standards and all kinds of standards, and it worked extremely well. And I would hope that would be the mechanism that our industry chooses to bring standards before somebody else tells us what standards to use.
Oh, that makes sense. I think we can sneak another one in here then. And so let's let you just completely make a guess as to whatever you want. You get to pick and choose. Describe what your pie in the sky dream devices, technologies for mobile UCC. You're a road warrior. You got to go between where you live in Massachusetts and down to Texas. What do you want ideally on your person to be able to get work done while you're moving?
Oh, that's a great question. So I'll tell you, for me, it's all about sort of making what I have to do easier. And, I mean, some people love the gadget, and I love the gadget, but, the form factor that it comes in, for me, is a little bit less important than what it does. So, I like it when my phone or whatever my mobile UCC solution can sort of predict what I want and figure it out. So actually, I'll tell you, I'll give you a little example of something that we're actually doing in HP that's kind of cool and along those lines. So we have this thing called Iris. And what Iris does is, let's say you and I are having a conversation, and you mention a word that this actually works over LinkedIn. So we're having a link conversation, and you mentioned the word WebRTC, and maybe I've never heard of it, and so there's this application that we have that's running right next to the link window, like actually inside the link window. And it's based on autonomy unstructured search. So autonomy has like this amazing unstructured, and it could like search the whole world for stuff, but it could also search look at the voice stream and match the text, the words that we're talking about. So it notices that we talked about WebRTC. Maybe somehow it knows that I don't know that term and it's an important term. And so what it'll do is it'll actually like show the definition. I can double click on it, and maybe by the time you're done asking me the question, I have a good view of what WebRTC is, and so then I could actually respond in an intelligent way, right? So that's just one example of like cool things your device can do for you. I mean, another one, I remember when I was at Avaya, we had this thing where you kind of press one button and it would dial your dial-in, it would dial the code, it would and then somebody came up with this other thing where as the time approached, like the app would like pop up and say, hey, you have this meeting coming, can I dial you in? I mean, those kinds of little things, I think are going to be, at least for me, are pretty important about, in terms of like what it does for me and in terms of, helping me be more productive. And I think there's actually a lot of those things coming, and we're just going to have to figure out how to put them together in a meaningful way.
Mm-hmm. So Iris, it sounds like, is sort of almost like an augmented reality for unified communications and collaboration. Is there any significance, last question, to the fact that Iris is Siri backwards?
I hadn't even thought of that, but that's kind of interesting. I'll let the guys know.
I bet somebody in the development team thought of that. So Mohammed, thank you very much for your time today. This is a great chat. And I want to let the viewers know that we're going to move over very quickly to the live text chat. And again, Mohammed's time is short, so make sure you've got your questions ready to go.